Have you ever met a woman who seemed completely uninterested, yet something didn't add up? She acted distant, sometimes cold, sometimes difficult to read. Maybe she didn't text first. Maybe she acted indifferent in group settings. Maybe she even seemed annoyed occasionally. And yet, you kept catching these strange moments that didn't match her behavior. A longer glance than necessary, unexpected curiosity, subtle attention. Tiny signs that suggested something very different was happening beneath the surface. Here's the truth most men never hear. Not every woman expresses attraction openly. Some women become warmer when they like a man. Others become nervous, reserved, guarded, or even cold. Why? Because attraction can create vulnerability, and vulnerability can make people behave in unexpected ways. Today, we're diving into the signs that may suggest a woman is far more emotionally invested than she appears. And make sure you stay until the end, because the final sign is often the strongest indicator of all, and it's the one most men completely misread. Let's begin. Before we dive deeper, a quick message. If you've been learning from my videos and you want to support this work, you can subscribe to me on Facebook with a paid membership, send stars, or join my YouTube channel's paid community. Your support helps me create more powerful content for you, and I truly appreciate every bit of it. All right, now let's continue. The first sign is that she always seems aware of you. This is one of the most overlooked attraction clues in female psychology. A woman can pretend not to care. She can avoid obvious flirting. She can act distant. But it's much harder to hide awareness. Notice what happens when you enter a room. Does she seem to notice? Does her attention subtly shift? Does she become aware of where you are? Who you're talking to? What you're doing? People naturally monitor things they care about. Not obsessively, but consistently. And attraction often increases awareness. You may think she's ignoring you. Meanwhile, she's noticing far more than you realize. Here's how to tell the difference between someone who is genuinely indifferent and someone who is pretending. Genuine indifference looks the same all the time. A person who doesn't care about you barely registers your presence. You walk in, nothing shifts. You leave, nothing changes. But a woman who secretly notices you responds differently. There's a subtle recalibration when you enter the space, a micro-awareness that she can't fully suppress. It might only last a fraction of a second, but it's there. And once you know what you're looking for, it becomes one of the clearest signals in the room. The second sign is that she remembers things she shouldn't remember. Maybe you mentioned a movie months ago, a random story, a favorite food, a goal, a joke, a tiny detail that seemed completely unimportant, yet somehow she remembers. Why? Because emotional interest creates selective attention. When someone matters to us, our brains naturally assign greater importance to information connected to them. This isn't necessarily conscious. It's psychology. People remember what emotionally engages them. And when a woman recalls details you've forgotten yourself, it's often worth paying attention. Think about what memory actually requires. It requires initial attention. It requires the brain to decide something is worth storing. And it requires that decision to happen automatically, without effort, because the subject already carries emotional weight. When she remembers the small things, she's revealing something she may never say directly. She was paying attention when you spoke. You mattered enough to store. And she's been carrying that detail around long after the conversation ended. Now here's the strange part. Sometimes the women who remember the most details are also the women who appear the coldest on the surface. Which brings us to the next sign. The third sign is that she reacts differently to you than she reacts to everyone else. This is huge, and most men miss it. They're looking for positive reactions, but attraction doesn't always create positive reactions. Sometimes it creates stronger reactions, period. Notice whether her behavior changes around you. Maybe she's relaxed around everyone else but tense around you. Maybe she's confident with others but awkward with you. Maybe she's calm until you enter the conversation. Why? Because attraction increases emotional stakes, and increased emotional stakes often create unusual behavior. The key isn't whether her reaction is perfect. The key is whether it's different, because indifference tends to look consistent. Interest often looks complicated. Here's a useful way to test this. Watch her across different situations. How does she behave with people she clearly has no feelings for? Easy, natural, unguarded. Now compare that to how she behaves around you. Is there a shift? Does something change in her energy? Does she become more careful, more self-conscious, more reactive? That shift, even if it expresses itself as coldness or awkwardness, is information. It's telling you that something about your presence raises the emotional stakes for her. And elevated stakes only exist where emotional investment already lives. The fourth sign is subtle jealousy. Now let's be careful here. We're not talking about toxic behavior. We're talking about small emotional reactions. Perhaps she suddenly becomes curious when another woman enters the picture. Perhaps she asks unexpected questions. Perhaps her mood changes slightly when she sees you giving attention elsewhere. Here's the psychology behind it. People rarely become emotionally protective of things they don't value. Jealousy isn't proof of love. It isn't proof of commitment, but it can reveal emotional investment. An emotional investment is difficult to fake, especially when it appears unexpectedly. The key word here is subtle. You're not looking for dramatic behavior. You're not looking for scenes or confrontations. You're looking for the small flicker. The moment her expression shifts when you mention spending time with someone else. The moment she asks a question that seems casual but is actually gathering information. The moment she becomes slightly more attentive when another woman shows interest in you. These moments pass quickly. They're easy to miss, but they reveal something that carefully controlled behavior cannot hide. They reveal that she has a stake in what happens with you. And people only develop stakes in things they care about. The fifth sign is that she creates excuses to interact with you. This doesn't always look obvious. In fact, it's usually subtle. Maybe she asks questions she could have answered herself. Maybe she finds reasons to continue conversations. Maybe she suddenly appears where you're spending time. Maybe she comments on things that don't require a comment. The important thing isn't the specific action. It's the pattern. People create opportunities around what interests them, and attraction often seeks proximity. Not always physical proximity, sometimes conversational proximity, sometimes emotional proximity, sometimes digital proximity. But the principle remains the same. Interest creates effort, and effort leaves clues. Pay attention to the unnecessary interactions, the ones where she had every reason not to reach out but did anyway. The ones where she lingered slightly longer than the situation required. The ones where the excuse was a little too convenient. Those moments aren't accidents, they're architecture. She's building opportunities to be near you while maintaining just enough cover to protect herself if things don't go the way she hopes. And that balance, wanting closeness while protecting vulnerability, is one of the most human things in the world. Now here's where things become fascinating, because the next sign often confuses men more than any other. The sixth sign is that she pulls away after moments of connection. This sounds backwards, but stay with me. Imagine a great conversation, strong chemistry, laughter, connection. Then suddenly she becomes distant. What happened? Many men assume attraction disappeared. Sometimes the opposite is true. Attraction can create vulnerability, and vulnerability can feel uncomfortable, particularly for someone who fears rejection, or fears emotional exposure, or simply isn't used to strong feelings. In those situations, people occasionally move closer, then pull back, closer, then back again. Not because they don't care, because they care enough to feel nervous. Think about what actually happens in a moment of real connection. Guards drop. Something real passes between two people. It feels significant, and significance can feel terrifying when you're not sure if the other person feels it too. So she retreats. Not to punish you, not because the moment didn't mean anything, but because it meant too much. And she needed space to process that, to decide how much she's willing to risk, to figure out whether the feeling is safe to act on. The push-pull pattern, when it follows genuine moments of warmth and chemistry, is one of the most telling signs that something real is developing beneath the surface. Now, this doesn't mean every mixed signal equals attraction, far from it. But when this pattern appears alongside multiple other signs, it becomes more meaningful. The seventh sign is that she wants information about you, even when she pretends she doesn't. This is where female psychology becomes particularly interesting. A woman who is emotionally invested often becomes curious. She wants updates, details, context, information. What are you doing? Who are you spending time with? What are your goals? What happened with that thing you mentioned? Curiosity is one of the clearest signs of interest because curiosity requires attention, and attention is valuable. People don't invest attention randomly. They invest it where emotional relevance exists. Here's what makes this sign particularly revealing. It's not just that she's curious, it's how she gathers information. Sometimes it's direct, she asks, but often it's indirect. She listens carefully when others talk about you. She pays attention to details mentioned in passing. She builds a picture of your life through fragments of conversation that she was never supposed to be assembling. That kind of quiet, consistent information gathering doesn't happen by accident. It happens because someone has decided, consciously or not, that you are worth understanding. And deciding someone is worth understanding is one of the earliest and most honest forms of interest there is. The 8th sign is that she notices changes in you. Most people move through life paying limited attention to others. They're busy, distracted, focused on their own concerns. But attraction sharpens observation. She notices your haircut, your mood, your energy, your habits, your appearance, your behavior, things that others completely overlook. Why? Because emotionally invested people naturally become more observant. They pay attention, and attention reveals value. There's something deeply significant about being truly seen by someone. Not just noticed, seen. She catches the shift in your energy before you've said a word. She notices when something is bothering you before you've named it. She picks up on the small changes, a new item of clothing, a different energy, a subtle adjustment in how you're carrying yourself. Most people in your life won't notice any of these things. They're too focused on their own worlds. But she notices, because you occupy space in her attention in a way she hasn't chosen and can't fully control. And that involuntary attention is one of the most honest signals a person can send. Now we're at the final sign, the strongest sign in this entire video, the one most men misunderstand completely. The 9th sign is that she tries to hide her interest. Yes, hide it. Here's why. Many men assume attraction always seeks expression, but attraction often seeks protection first, especially when emotions feel uncertain. A woman who is strongly attracted may worry about rejection, embarrassment, looking foolish, giving away too much, appearing vulnerable. So instead of expressing everything openly, she controls it, masks it, downplays it. Sometimes she even acts colder than she feels, not because she lacks interest, because she's trying to manage it. And this is where many men make a critical mistake. They interpret emotional caution as emotional absence. Those are not the same thing. Someone can be deeply interested and still guarded, deeply curious and still cautious, deeply attracted and still afraid. Here's the thing about emotional self-protection that most men never fully appreciate. It requires something to protect. You don't build walls around feelings you don't have. You don't carefully manage emotions that aren't there. You don't work to hide something that doesn't exist. So when a woman is clearly working to conceal something, when her behavior has the telltale quality of someone managing their own reactions, controlling their own expressions, pulling back from something they're simultaneously drawn toward, that effortful concealment is itself the signal. It tells you that there's something underneath worth hiding, and what's worth hiding is almost always something real. That's why understanding patterns matters. One sign means very little. 2 signs may be coincidence, but when multiple signs repeatedly appear together, awareness, curiosity, remembering details, seeking interaction, subtle jealousy, different behavior, noticing changes, protecting vulnerability, then something much deeper may be happening beneath the surface. Now, here's an important truth. Not every cold woman secretly likes you. Sometimes disinterest is simply disinterest, and it's important to respect that. But when genuine attraction exists alongside emotional guardedness, it creates a very specific pattern, a pattern of someone who is pulled toward you and simultaneously trying not to be, someone who notices everything while pretending to notice nothing, someone who remembers every detail while acting like the conversations were casual, someone who creates opportunities to be near you while maintaining enough distance to feel safe. That's not indifference. That's conflict.
Internal conflict between what she feels and what she's willing to show. And that conflict, when you learn to recognize it, becomes one of the most revealing things a person can communicate. Not through words, through the very effort of trying not to communicate at all. Human emotions rarely announce themselves clearly. They leave clues, and the people who understand those clues often understand people far better than everyone else. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more insights into female psychology, attraction, relationships, and human behavior. And don't stop here. Check out the other videos on this channel for more wisdom, hidden truths, and powerful psychological insights that can completely change how you understand attraction and relationships. Until next time, stay observant, stay confident, and remember, sometimes the strongest feelings are hidden behind the coldest masks.